Sophia Bennett grew up in a wealthy family in Greenwich, Connecticut, where everything was perfectly arranged, from lavish parties to vacations in expensive resorts. But in her mind, those things were not just luxuries, but the obvious part of her life. From an early age, she was raised in a world where all desires were met instantly. She has horses for her 10th birthday, expensive designer suits before turning 16, and luxury trips to resorts in Europe. Everyone around her caters to her needs, from exquisite tutors to strict coaches, all of which create the perfect image of a wealthy girl, who is taught to be a symbol of success. But behind that flashy shell, Sophia carries a deep belief that all she has is obvious. She never had to try because everything came to her naturally. Everyone around her serves her, takes care of her, and adores her, making her feel that she is at the center of everything. Especially her parents, who taught her that wealth and social status are the only measure of human worth. Her father, Jonathan Bennett, was a well-known lawyer who was always on the pages of business magazines, while her mother, Eloise, was a social woman, who organized galas and managed all family activities with an iron hand. Since childhood, Sophia has lived in a world where everyone has to bow down to her, just to serve her family's dreams and ambitions. Genuine love or concern never seemed to be evident in her family. Everything is a game of power and image. Sophia learned to see herself as someone special, and the people around her were just tools to help her maintain that status. She never has to face difficulties because everything is always solved quickly, and every small failure in life seems to be just a thing that is not worth mentioning. These years have shaped Sophia as an egotist, always thinking that she deserves everything just because she is the daughter of a noble family. From studying at prestigious private schools to participating in glamorous social activities, her life is like a series of perfectly planned events. However, behind that flashy picture, Sophia never really faced real challenges. She doesn't understand the difficulties in other people's lives, and even more so can't feel the effort they have to put in to get what they have. Everything came to her as a matter of course, and that gradually nurtured in her a deep belief that her life would always be on a path paved with roses, for simply, she was Sophia Bennett. Sophia Bennett has always felt different. Every time she stepped outside, she not only found herself the center of attention, but also felt that the whole world was giving her respect and admiration. She was born into a wealthy and powerful family, where everything was always available only because of the family's name and reputation. Everything around her always seems to be arranged to please her, from luxury gifts to amazing trips. And with every gift, every trip, every party, the sense of privilege in her is even stronger. When she walked into meetings, no one dared to doubt her abilities. Sophia doesn't have to put in the effort or prove herself by effort. Just her presence was enough for everyone to listen silently, because she was the daughter of a powerful family. She felt that every opportunity was open to her, and that no one could stand in the way of the path she had charted. When she looked in the mirror, Sophia never saw an ordinary person. She sees a special person, worthy of all the best that life has to offer. From a young age, she had learned that everything could be bought with money, and since her family had enough money, she never had to worry about being deprived or having to try to rise. Her mind was always immersed in the thought that power and fame were the only measure of human worth. The people around her, from friends to colleagues, are simply tools to help her maintain her position. Surely they could not surpass her, because they were not of the same class. And every time one of them stepped forward, she felt like she was being challenged, as if her power was under threat. That sense of privilege prevented Sophia from seeing the efforts of others. She didn't understand their hardships or sacrifices, because in her eyes, they were always people below, people who couldn't reach her level. With each step, Sophia reinforces her belief that everything in the world is subject to her. She never had to struggle to get what she wanted, because everyone around her had to work to meet her needs. Not only do she think she deserves good things, but she also believes that no one has the right to doubt or reject her requests. The privilege in her mind was an integral part of life, something she felt was inevitable, part of the nature of her family and the social position she had inherited. David Turner grew up in a poor neighborhood in Atlanta, where the dilapidated houses and muddy roads reflected his family's difficult circumstances. The first days of David's life were a series of days of struggle with difficulties and deprivation. Every morning, he has to wake up early to help his mother prepare breakfast for the family before starting school. There are not many facilities in the house, but there is always full of love and care from his mother. His mother, a resilient and hard-working woman, taught him that no matter how difficult life may be, patience and hard work will be the key to overcoming any challenge. David never felt sorry for himself about his situation. Every day he tries to study well and work hard, hoping that one day he can help his family and get out of poverty. What he learned from his mother was not theoretical lessons but practical lessons about the value of hard work and perseverance. He always saw in his mother's eyes the hope that one day David would be able to do great things, even if he came from a family with nothing. After completing his military service, David returned to his homeland with a big dream: to build a career and help others in difficult circumstances like himself. With little savings from his years in the military, he decided to start a small construction company that provided jobs for people who didn't have many opportunities, such as former criminals, single mothers, and young people who didn't have stable jobs. Although the company is small and facing many difficulties, he always believes that his job is not only a business but also a way to bring positive change to the community. However, when the global economic crisis hit, everything suddenly collapsed. The company's contracts gradually disappeared, and David was forced to close the company after years of struggling with debt. It was a big shock in his life. Despite his failure, he did not give up. He thought about his family, his mother, his daughter Mia, who was studying medicine in Atlanta, and he decided to move to New York in search of new opportunities. Despite having to work as a cleaner in a large company, with a low salary and life not easy, David always maintains his dignity. He knew that this new challenge would not change his ideals of life. He continues to live with the belief that, no matter how bad things are, perseverance and honesty will always lead him to success. David never lets circumstances change who he is. He has always lived with humility, hard work, and respect for everyone around him. Even though his job is to sweep, he still does his best, with the pride of being a part of the community, always considering every step he does as a step on the path of success and growth. That day, when Sophia walked into the large lobby of Lexington & Company, she felt the same as ever: confident, proud, and with a mind full of plans for the future. She didn't pay attention to anything other than a single goal: career advancement. The rain out there couldn't dampen the haste of her steps. Every step was firm and resounded against the cold marble floor. Her feather coat and expensive high heels form a perfect image of wealth and power, causing everyone in the building to quietly give way. But when she entered the reception area, right in the middle of her eyes, Sophia suddenly saw a man kneeling on the floor. Her eyes focused on cleaning the area near the elevator. David Turner, the janitor, doesn't notice her, but Sophia quickly recognizes the presence of him, a lower-class person in the world she lives in. A simmering discomfort rose in her heart. She couldn't understand how someone like him could appear in this place, in a shiny building that she thought belonged to successful people. She was frustrated and angry, because she felt that she had been harassed. Everything around her had to be perfect. There was no room for people like him, just people who never deserved to be in this space. She walked closer, unable to hold back her frustration. "Don't you see, people passing through here can't do this kind of thing," Sophia exclaimed, her voice as sharp as a knife, full of disdain. David looked up. His eyes didn't show any confusion. He simply replied with a slight smile, "I'm sorry, I'll finish cleaning up right away." But his calm answer only made Sophia angrier. She glanced over excitedly, not forgetting to mutter, "Maybe if people like you worked harder, they wouldn't have to do this job." Those words flashed through David's ears like the wind, but deep down in his heart, the humiliation was not easily forgotten. He was used to such words, words full of disrespect, but he never let them defeat him. He continued his work, silent, without arguing. For him, maintaining dignity in each action is more important than the meaningless words of others. That's how he has lived all these years. Sophia walks with the satisfaction that she has taught an inferior person. But in her heart, A strange feeling began to creep in. She didn't realize that she had hurt a human being, but only felt that she was maintaining her power in a world full of superiority that she believed belonged to her. However, in the depths of her mind, the image of David with calm eyes still did not leave her, as something that made her feel confused, a feeling that she could not explain at that moment. The competition between Sophia and Rachel Harris is not only a battle of wits between two talented women, but also a confrontation of two completely different worlds. Every time Sophia saw Rachel, an unpleasant feeling of insecurity surged in her heart. Rachel, with her humility and humane approach to work, always made Sophia feel threatened. It's the kind of opponent that Sophia can't underestimate, who has a simple appearance but has the ingenuity and empathy that Sophia has always lacked. Sophia never admits jealousy, but that feeling is always present every time she sees Rachel loved by her colleagues and respected by her superiors. While Sophia focuses only on her sharp strategies and big ego, Rachel can easily win people's hearts with her sincerity and ability to listen. Every time Rachel walked into the meeting room, Sophia felt the air become softer, like everyone was turning towards her. And Sophia was just a faint figure, though she always tried to maintain a confident and strong appearance. With every project, every meeting, Sophia not only wants to win, but also wants to make Rachel realize her superiority. When she realized that Rachel had won the trust of the management and colleagues, Sophia couldn't accept it. She felt threatened and became sharper and sharper in her handling of all situations. Every time Rachel comes up with an idea, Sophia will immediately refute it, trying to find a way to drown her, although many times Sophia has to admit that Rachel's ideas are really worth it. Rachel, on the other hand, was unaffected by Sophia's attacks. She remained steadfast and worked with respect for everyone, not letting competition lose her essence. Every time Sophia tried to win the look or attention of her leader, Rachel just did her job gently, not having to say too much, but the results always proved her intelligence and insight. That made Sophia feel more and more tired and stressed. She couldn't help but feel that no matter what she did, she still couldn't earn the respect that Rachel had. The situation became even more tense when an important promotion opportunity arose, with the position of vice president of marketing up for grabs between them. This is the time when the competition between the two is no longer just a battle of wits, but has become a battle of life and death. Sophia felt that everything could become a weapon in her hands. Sharp words, coolness and strategy, but every time she faced Rachel, she couldn't help but feel that she was facing a force that was difficult to deal with. Rachel never appears confrontational, but her calmness and confidence make Sophia feel like she's being pushed back. These days, Sophia is no longer only worried about whether she can win, but whether she can maintain her position, whether she can overcome the feeling of always lacking confidence every time she sees Rachel working and receiving respect from everyone. The feeling of not being able to control everything made her feel stuck, as if all her efforts were not enough to change the final outcome. When the video of Sophia treating David rudely went viral in the company, she couldn't believe that her words had such great power. At first, she didn't pay much attention to it, thinking that it was just a small incident that would quickly be forgotten. But as soon as she entered the company the next morning, the atmosphere had completely changed. The sneaky eyes, whispered gossip from her colleagues made her feel like she was surrounded. The conversation stopped as she walked by, and a heavy feeling rose in Sophia's heart. She was no longer the center of attention she used to be. Instead, the silence and strangeness from the people around him adds to the feeling of loneliness in his heart. By the time she walked into the office, she had heard the buzz about the video. She knew that it wasn't a simple thing anymore. The discomfort began to flare up, as if a large wave was pushing her into a quagmire from which there was no way out. The words she had uttered, which seemed insignificant at the time, had now become incurable wounds in everyone's eyes. Sophia feels like an outsider in her own company. When she walked into the meeting room still trying to look confident, the HR director didn't hesitate but immediately pointed out her mistakes. Her criticism made her feel like the whole world was falling on her. Although she tried to defend herself, insisting that she had no bad intentions, the director's tone did not allow her a chance to justify. The feeling of being put on complete defensiveness made her extremely uncomfortable, as if every word she spoke was a blow to her remaining self-esteem. When the video was shown in front of her, Sophia couldn't believe her eyes. She clearly saw contempt in her own voice and could not deny the image of a woman full of power, but lacking respect and humanity. Every moment in the video made her feel humiliated, as if all her arrogance was suddenly exposed in front of everyone's eyes. As soon as the meeting ended, the sense of collapse became even more pronounced. Colleagues avoided her. No one looked at her with the same respectful eyes as before. A cold silence enveloped Sophia, making it impossible for her to find a way out. The meetings, the projects that she used to lead, are now full of strange eyes, eluding gossip. She couldn't deny that everything was slowly slipping out of her hands. The feeling of loss of control began to rise. Sophia realizes that she is no longer the beloved person in the company. Everything she had ever built, her career, her reputation, and her position, was now nothing more than a pile of ruins of her own making. Sophia's downfall did not come suddenly. It was a process, a gradual push from her mistakes, from disrespect for those around her. And now the truth had exploded. It was no longer indisputable. She looked in the mirror, and for the first time, she didn't recognize herself. She felt empty, confused, as if a part of herself had been lost, unable to get it back. The day of the promotion announcement had arrived, and Sophia walked into the meeting room in an expectant mood. She had been preparing for this moment for a long time, imagining that she would be called up and take the position of deputy director of marketing that she thought she deserved to be. She wore a delicately designed dress, perfectly groomed hair, and walked confidently, each exuding certainty and power. Sophia believes that everything is ready for her advancement, and no one can stop her. But when the CEO stepped on the podium, his voice remained calm and not particularly directed towards her. Today we are excited to announce that he will be the new Vice President of Marketing, who has demonstrated leadership, cooperation, and respect for everyone. Congratulations, Laura Kendrick. A sudden shock struck Sophia's mind. It felt like time stood still. The CEO's words echoed in her head, but she couldn't hold back the confusion in her heart. She watched Laura stand up, smile modestly, and step up to receive congratulations from her colleagues. All eyes in the room were on Laura, but Sophia just stood there, her hands clenched, trying to control her rising emotions. Her heart seemed to be broken. The feeling of disappointment is indescribable. She had spent a whole year fighting to prove that she was worthy of this position, and in the end someone else, not her, was the one who was chosen. The feeling of failure spread from head to toe, like a wave that swept away all the hope and confidence she had built. Her face was cold, but in her heart anger and shame were flared up. She couldn't understand why she had lost, why Laura, whom she had always considered a rival, had won everyone's support and affection. As everyone around her applauded and praised Laura, Sophia just stood there, feeling no joy in her heart. She felt like she was left behind, as if everything she had given was meaningless. She saw Laura stand up, smiling softly, and she wondered if she could maintain such resilience, if she could face this defeat without falling. The feeling of self-pity rose, and Sophia felt that she was no longer herself. Each heavy step as she returned to her seat, a sense of loneliness overwhelmed. She felt like she was standing out of this life. No one saw her anymore, no one judged her as before. She was so used to being admired and pursued, but now all she received was silence and strange eyes. When the meeting ended, Sophia tried to leave the room without revealing too much emotion, but every step seemed to drag her frustration. She walked past Laura, but couldn't look her in the eye. It felt like there was a wound deep in her heart, a wound that she couldn't heal herself. And despite her efforts to restrain herself, Sophia couldn't deny that, in that moment, she felt like she had indeed lost something important, something she couldn't easily regain. David walked into the office feeling excited but not worried. The large room, with glass doors overlooking the city, was no longer a strange place to him. On the contrary, it has become a mark of the efforts and sacrifices that he has experienced during this time. It felt like something was a little vague but very clear. He had gone further than he had ever thought. David's rise from a cleaner to a facilities manager position was the result of an arduous journey. In the past, he only hoped to find a stable job to make ends meet, but now new opportunities are opening up in front of him. His feeling now is not arrogance, but deep joy and gratitude. He couldn't help but think about the hard days when he still had to take care of his family and daughter, and now here he was, standing firmly in a position few could have imagined. When he received the announcement of the new project he would be in charge of, his heart beat a little harder, not because of the momentary excitement but because of the weight it brings. I know this is not just an ordinary project. It is an opportunity for him to prove that he is not only an ordinary employee, but also a leader who can bring value to the company. In the first meetings of the project, David clearly felt the difference in how people perceived him. Although he is not a wealthy leader nor a person with a strong family background, he can feel respect, not because of his title or power, but because of the effort he puts in and the way he approaches work. He listened attentively to the opinions of his colleagues, made decisions that were not in a hurry but carefully, building step by step to ensure that the project would be successful. With each meeting, every communication, David feels more confident. He gradually felt a change in himself. No longer a mediocre man worried about being able to keep his job, but now someone who could run, lead, and make a difference. However, sometimes he also feels tired because he has to face challenges, both in his work and personal life, but he always remembers the reason he works: to give his daughter a better future, to prove that he can overcome all barriers. The new project not only gave David the opportunity to develop himself, but also a turning point in his career. Every step he takes, no matter how small or large, marks the progress of a man who never stops trying. And when he looks back, he realizes that it was the most difficult moments that helped him grow and be stronger than ever. When Sophia enters the dark room, the only light from the computer screen reflects old photos, memories that she can't easily erase. The days of living in pride, with the belief that the world revolves around her, are now like fragments in her mind. The respectful looks, the compliments that used to be nothing are now nothing. She sat down in a chair next to her desk, her hands trembling as she opened a file, looking back at the emails, company announcements, and messages from her old friends who had once stood beside her in all their glory. A strange feeling came over. She used to think that she was always the one who controlled everything, always stood above others with complacency and arrogance. But now, looking back, she realizes that it was that egotism that pushed her out of the circle of sincere relationships. She thought about David, the man she had previously considered unimportant, just a cleaner in the company, but it was he who made her realize one thing: value didn't come from being seen by others but from herself. He did the little things with dedication and never resentment. As for her, she used to scold and criticize, just because his small actions were not pleasing to the eye. Feelings of remorse rose, not because of a failure at work, but because she had let her complacency cloud her vision, making her unaware that true success came from respect and fair treatment of people. Tonight, in the empty room, Sophia felt like she was lost. The victories she used to be proud of are now just pieces that are no longer valuable, not enough to comfort her in these lonely moments. But at the same time, a part of her also felt a change. Sophia no longer wanted to be trapped forever in the quagmire of the past, not wanting to continue living in the shadow of arrogance. She knew that, in order to grow up, she had to face her mistakes, accepting that she had hurt not only others but herself. She couldn't keep looking back, and even more so couldn't continue to live with what had passed. As she pondered, a new thought came to her mind. She needed to change. Not for promotion, not to regain what she had lost, but because she herself deserved a chance to start over. Sophia knows that, in order to truly change, she has to face difficult choices, to regain her self-esteem and respect for others. She stood up, grabbed a blank piece of paper, and wrote down the things she felt needed to change. Every word written down is like a small step on the road to self-recovery. She is no longer the person she used to be, but she is also not someone who will forever live in failure. Sophia knows that maturity doesn't come quickly, but she's willing to take the first steps, no matter how small.